The tutorial in Marvel's Midnight Suns is A, robust, B, informative, and C, it gives you all of the right information right when you need it. There are a few things that aren't part of the tutorial, though, that you'll learn just by playing the game over time. It's me again, Christopher Odd, and in partnership with Marvel and 2K, of course, I'm bringing you a video that will teach you a few tips and tricks that I've learned just by playing the game a lot that aren't necessarily taught to us through the tutorials. First up, I wanted to explain something that does happen in the early game, and if you're planning ahead on the battlefield, this will come in extra handy. You're going to be on a few missions with Blade, and one of his tricks is applying the bleed mechanic. If an enemy is bleeding, they're going to take extra damage at the end of their turn. Well, how do you know how much bleed will apply? It's not always the attack number that you see on the card ability. In fact, it's based on Blade's offense stat. Between missions, you're able to look at your character stats and pay close attention to Blade's, because this will really help you plan out your decisions efficiently on the battlefield. Of course, while on the battlefield, you can hover over an enemy that's currently bleeding, and you can see how much damage that they're going to be taking here too. But now you can know in advance if you know his offense number. Pro tip here, when a hero levels up in combat, those stat changes to offense and health that pop up in the bottom right, those are applied right away. So in the case of bleed, you can gain the extra benefits of the extra bleed amount by reapplying bleed after a level up. You can also see your XP progression represented by a circle that's filling up around the hero icon in the bottom left. So when it's near full, you know you're close to a level up. Number 2, you know how an enemy can apply a debuff to one of your superheroes? Let's say vulnerable, for instance. Vulnerable makes it so that you will take more damage from attacks. Now, in Marvel's Midnight Suns, we don't know what the turn order of the enemies is, right? We can see who they're targeting, but we don't know the order in which they're going to attack. So what if an enemy applies that vulnerable debuff first before the other enemies start attacking you? That would feel very unfair because you can't really plan for it. How could we have known? Well, the developers have considered this, and enemies that apply things like vulnerable or other debuffs apply them after regular attacks against individual heroes. So, to demonstrate, in this clip you're going to notice Blade gets a vulnerable applied, but no other units were attacking him, so that's fair. But then Iron Man gets attacked multiple times before finally receiving the stun debuff. That stun could have been any type of debuff, but it will always come at the end of an attack sequence against a given superhero. A quick one here for number 3. Have you ever seen this icon above an enemy during combat? This means something particularly nasty is coming in. Something much stronger than a normal attack. Use this information to plan your targets accordingly, because left to their own devices, Hydra will not hold back. You're going to have to learn what enemies do for their abilities over time. Hydra officers operate a little bit different than Hydra grunts, for example. Hydra marksmen are particularly annoying to deal with. So get to know the enemies, take some notes if you need to, and this way you can always be planning ahead. Now you do eventually learn this tip, but not necessarily through a tutorial, and it is something that, had you known it earlier, could be very valuable. So if you've seen all the hero deep dives that we've done leading up to launch, you'll know that we always highlight which type of passive you're going to unlock as you progress friendship levels. But you might reach your first friendship level with a superhero friend and realize, hey, I didn't get one of those passives, what gives? Well, that's because passives don't start unlocking until friendship level 2 with any given superhero. Passives gained by your roster are very strong, so I encourage you to work on those friendship levels ASAP. You do start with Doctor Strange on the roster. He has arguably one of the strongest passives in the game, so if you're unsure of who to invest in early, he's a fantastic option. You literally can't go wrong, and I think he might just be the strongest hero in the game. You could fit him into any roster, so he's definitely worth investing in. Number 5, speaking of friendship, when you start playing, you may notice that after some missions, you're gaining friendship with heroes, and not on other missions. So why? What gives? If you're paying close attention to your team comps, missions where you take the Hunter will result in friendship gains for your accompanying super buds, but if you choose not to take the Hunter, no friendship gains. Kind of neat, huh? So what's the trade-off then? Why would you just not take the hunter all the time? Well, maybe you want to level somebody else. Like, that's the main thing that you're going to get by going out on these missions, is leveling up different people on your roster. There is a certain mechanic in place that will keep lower leveled heroes that you're not using as much closely leveled with the hunter. But that is the trade-off. So if you want to boost your friendship, bring the hunter. Number 6, in Marvel's Midnight Suns, you get 1 move per turn. Now, this can be modified by certain heroes. Could be modified by some abilities or maybe some combat items. But what other tools do you have available to influence your positioning? If you pay close attention to the green circle that appears when you're looking to use an ability or environmental attack, that is the landing position of your hero after they do the move. More often than not, you'll be able to save that precious manual move for a desperate need at the end of a turn. So instead of burning it up front, I would encourage you to look for all these other options first. I'll also point out that some environmental attacks do not require you to use your move on them. For example, you can target a small crate and your hero will run over to that position regardless of where they're at and then throw the box. So consider all your options before consuming your moves. They're extremely important and necessary not just for getting out of tough positions, strong enemy AoE attack, for example, but you kind of want to use them to line up really strong offensive positions too. They're very important, so use them wisely. Number 7, of a similar vein, something shared by Jake Solomon during an impromptu Q&A session with the 2K Nextmakers team. Invest in the Doctor Strange research to get an upgrade in the yard that grants shove. Then, when you move, you're able to target an enemy directly and knock them back as well. You can knock them into other enemies, environmental structures, into pits, off buildings, all part of just your move. It's not using any heroism or anything like that. It's pretty major and it's very helpful. Or you can go further down that path and you'll get an ability where you can knock enemies safely into your allies, and then your ally will punch back against the enemy, dealing even more damage. If you want to keep progressing your training levels in the yard, you do want to be upgrading your cards and sparring as often as possible to build your XP there. Don't overlook this. Even, I mentioned this in another video, but early on in the game, you can do more damage via environmental attacks than you can straight abilities if you're progressing your training level quickly. And lastly here, number 8, not a full mind blower tip, but a very helpful one in my opinion. The game teaches you that as you boost your arcane level, you'll get better drops from chests. In my experimenting, upon reaching a new arcane level, you should sleep before you open new chests, and you will reap the additional benefits on the next day. You can hover over your arcane level in the bottom right of the map screen to see exactly what that arcane level is granting you as well. How do you get arcane levels? Explore the Abbey, read all the stuff, pet Charlie the dog. Pretty much everything you do exploring that world is going to slowly accumulate arcane knowledge, and this is where it helps. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you're looking for more tips like this, please subscribe to both the Midnight Suns channel and my own. Thanks to Marvel and 2K for working with me on this video. And all the links to everything about Midnight Suns, both of our channels, are in the description down below. Take care, guys, and we will see you in the next one.